Hello, better reading people. Hi. I'm just going to wait a few seconds to see if anyone shows up. But hello, I'm Rachael Johns. Welcome to my office. I won't show you that side because that's my mess side. And this is my visual, pretty side. I love my bookshelves. A lot of people always comment about my bookshelves. I just want to say thank you so much to Better Reading for inviting me to come on tonight and talk about my latest book. Oh, hello, Marie. How are you? In WA over here, I just was actually thinking, oh, hi, Joe Bell. So, yeah, I'm in WA, peoples. Hi, Anne. And I was thinking, what should I wear tonight to go on and talk to all of you? And then it was freezing when I got home from picking up the kids, and I did a library event this afternoon. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Anne. Hi, Karen. The lovely Karen Brooks, who is also an author, is watching. Anyway, it's freezing, so I considered wearing my hoodie, but then I thought, no, just put the heater a little bit on your office and, wear something slightly more presentable. But has anyone got an hoodie? This is not a sponsored post, but they're great for reading. Hi, Linda. Hi, Sue. All right, so please feel free to interrupt me at any time with any questions you have about reading, writing, my addiction to Diet Coke, cats. I don't like spiders. Let's not talk about them. But especially my new book. Well, that's the advanced reading copy. This one is the pretty finished copy. How to Mend a Broken Heart. Oh, Sandy's watching from Scotland. Hi, I love Scotland. My family is from Newcastle in England, not Australia, and so not too far from Scotland. So I do love Scotland. Hi, Julietta, another fabulous author. And Lynn, hello. Oh, there's so many comments. I'm scared I'm going to miss saying hello to someone. Joy Bell is freezing in Melbourne. I can imagine. I was talking with a friend today who is a book reviewer, and she's in Melbourne, and she said, oh my gosh, it's so cold. And then she told me the temperature, and I said, it's actually colder here at that time of day it was, but it felt warmer. I was only wearing a T-shirt. Weather is a weird thing, but we're not here to talk about the weather. Hi, Jane. Hi, Cheryl from Port Lincoln. Hi, Leanne. Sorry, when I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at your wonderful comments. Another author, Leanne Lovegrove. Thank you. And Juliet. Oh, lots of lovely authors are here tonight, as well as readers. And thank you, Stephen. Love your books, as done Mum Jenny. Hi, Jenny, and hi, Kelly, bestie. Cold in Sydney too. I feel like, well, WA hasn't been really cold up to now, and it's still pretty pleasant. I feel like maybe we are about to hit the cold stint. Peter, hi, Rachel. Hi, Peter. You're saying hello to me. Just listened again. Are you telling me you've listened to How to Mend a Broken Heart twice already? Only came out a couple of weeks ago. Wow. Casey Withers, who is the audio narrator, is amazing. And I totally love audiobooks. I haven't actually listened to any of my own. I tried, but even though the narrators are great, I just can't do it. Hi, Monica from Mildura. Hi, Vicky. Thank you. Hi, Sue. Hi, Dixie. Oh, Dixie was at my library event today. Hopefully, you won't get too bored of what I'm going to say. Anyway, 3 minutes have already gone by, so I should probably start having a chat about How to Mend a Broken Heart. This is my latest book. A lot of people say how many is it, and I've lost count. We're not sure. It's about 24 or 25. That's a long story why I'm not sure, and I won't bore you with all that tonight. Catherine's saying hello. Maddie's saying love your new book. Oh, Kath is starting it tonight. Excellent. Well, this is perfect timing, isn't it? And Kim said she loved How to Mend a Broken Heart. Thank you. Oh, and Joy Bell, big hugs to all of you in Victoria. There's no words. Back in masks, I can't even. So just big, huge, massive hugs from WA. Hopefully this nightmare will one day be over. Oh, thank you, Zelda. She loved it too. So I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about How to Mend a Broken Heart and my research for this book, the writing process, why I wrote it. A lot of people always ask authors, where do you get your inspiration from? And one of the answers to that is everywhere, and that's not very helpful, I know, but it's true. Ideas literally do come from everywhere. I've been inspired by a weed, my book, The Patterson Girls. I have been inspired by old buildings, even a furniture ad once for one of my novellas. Sorry, just look at some of these comments. Hi, Anne. Hope you do enjoy the book. And Catherine in the north of Newcastle, Oz. Yay. Oh, Kylie wants to know what inspired me to become an author. Well, what a good question to start. I'll get to the book in a second, but, you know, maybe we'll start there. It's a long and funny story, and I'll try to tell it succinctly. So I wasn't a huge reader in high school, which is one of my biggest regrets, because I love books now, obviously. To be a reader, you definitely have to be a writer. In fact, I would almost say you have to read more than you write. If I had to give up reading or writing, I'd probably give up writing, because there's so many wonderful books out there and I just can't get enough. But unfortunately, I'm way behind on my reading because I didn't read through high school. I did read one book, which we'll actually talk about when I get to the inspiration. But the reason I didn't read is because I was kind of obsessed with a boy, and it took a lot of energy, you know, stalking someone pretty much all through high school until they agreed to go out with me. Yeah, I was pretty sad. Anyway, and I was 17-year-old girl, when we were going out briefly. Hugely hormonal, emotional, dramatic. I was such a drama queen. Probably still am. And towards the end of year 12, I accidentally dumped my high school sweetheart, who I thought was the love of my life. Yeah, you can accidentally dump someone. That's another story. I won't bore you with that. And anyway, I just started writing. And what I've realized, I've met a lot of writers in the last, my maths is not that great, in the last almost 25 years since I started writing. I've met a number of authors, aspiring and published, and I see that there's kind of a couple of ways how people get to writing. Some people have been wanting to be a writer since they were, you know, tiny, and as soon as they discovered books, they knew that that's what they wanted to do. Since they could hold a pen, they wanted to write. I'm jealous of those people, because they usually have really cute little chapter books that they wrote, or picture stories that they can share at events to show people that their mums kept, and it's so cute. But the rest of us, or another large portion of us, come to writing through therapy. And I definitely did. I turned to writing because I was heartbroken. So quite funny that now we're talking about how to mend a broken heart, come full circle. My mending of the broken heart happened through writing. I wrote the story of me and this boy, which was so boring, because for 4 years he'd run the other direction when I saw him coming. And I'm seeing all your comments. Thank you. And I'll definitely try and get to them soon. And so I wrote this book, and it was terrible. It was 80,000 words of absolute rubbish. In the school holidays between finishing year 12 and starting uni, I was supposed to be starting primary school teaching. And I loved it. I just caught the bug, and I think writing is a bug. You know, I think what I liked most about it was that I could play God. I could manipulate the characters on the page, whereas in real life I couldn't make everyone do what I wanted them to do. And I should say I didn't end it the way it ended in real life. Instead of accidentally dumping him, I gave him a horrific disease and I killed him off. And that was really good therapy for me. And I knew that no one else could have him. So that's how I got into it. I took a long time to get published. I took 15 years from deciding to write a book to when I first got my contract with the fabulous Harlequin Books, who's my publisher. And so it was a long journey. There were a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of rejections, a lot of learning. And there's a lot of reasons why it took so long. I don't regret that it did. But yeah, that's how I got into it. Okay, what other questions do we have? Oh, Tracy has asked, do you prefer writing contemporary fiction or rural romance? Because I should have mentioned at the beginning, I am an author of 2 genres. I write in what we call, it's a very hard name, contemporary fiction. That's what I'm going to call it, contemporary general fiction. These are relationship stories, but the focus is more on the relationships with, say, friends, family members, work colleagues, sometimes strangers, mother, daughters, you know, all that kind of stuff. This is a mother-daughter one. And I also write in the rural romance genre, which many of you probably have known me. That's where I started. So if anyone doesn't know, here's one I prepared earlier, Talk of the Town. That's one, not my last rule, but recent one. And so do I prefer writing? It's such a hard question. It's a bit like if you say, who's my favourite child? I'll say one day it's one child, another day I'll say another one. Because when I'm writing rural romance, I think, oh, this is so hard, I can't do this. And, you know, it must be so much easier to be writing a book where I have multiple female characters telling me their ideas and, you know, getting their story down. But when I'm writing those stories with multiple female characters, I think, oh, I wish I was writing a rural romance. It must be so much easier because, you know, in romance, there is sort of a structure and a promise to fulfill. It's like if you read a crime book and someone dies or was found killed on the first page, you then expect to find out who killed them by the end. And in a romance, you meet these two people in the beginning and you expect them to get together and have a happy, hopeful ending at the end. So I know what I'm working towards. Whereas in this other genre, which is more general contemporary fiction, it's anything goes kind of thing. My characters, the stories depend, the structure changes depending on how many points of view I have, and a whole load of other things. I don't necessarily have to have a happy ever after. And the story's kind of a more wide, if that makes sense. So I hope that answers your question. I love them both. I hate them both. No, I don't hate them, but I really love both genres and I love reading them too. But sometimes I feel one is easier than the other, I should say. Nothing is easy though. No, easy reading is not easy writing, as Nathaniel Hawthorne said. All right, look forward to a new book. Michelle's loving my book, but she was sick for a few days. Oh no, that's not good. Oh, so many comments here. Okay, I'm going to answer one more question, then I'll quickly tell you a little bit about How to Mend a Broken Heart, and then answer some more. So I think it was, where did I see it here? Saw it a second ago. No, Linda said accidentally dropping someone sounds like a great premise for a book. I actually said that to someone at a library today, because initially I thought that's a terrible way to end a book, which is why I changed the ending. But now I'm beginning to think maybe I should try and write that story differently. Jill just finished Flying the Nest and loved it. Oh, thank you so much, Jill. And hi, Wendy from Wagga. Okay. Oh, there's a couple of questions. I'm going to do one question first from Michelle, and then I'm going to answer a couple that are a bit more specific. So Michelle said, do your authors write back blurb of your books, or who does that? By the back blurb, haven't even had any wine, and I'm saying I've got some because Better Reading told me, hey, people like having a wine. And I do what Better Reading tells me to do. Has anyone else got a drink? What are you drinking tonight? Anyway, the back blurb of the book is a sort of a collaboration between myself, my publisher, and the marketing department, I guess. So I'll give it an attempt to start with, or my publisher will give it an attempt. And then, depending really who's got the time, and then we'll send it to each other and we'll tear it apart, change things and do that. And it goes back and forth until we're happy with it. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question, Michelle. Okay, so I am going to tell you a little bit about How to Mend a Broken Heart now and where the idea came from. This is a story of Felicity Bell, who, as Peter Wiseman said, she said, did I actually visit a taxidermist? Felt like you knew a lot about the process. So I'll get to that. But Felicity is a taxidermist. She's one of my main characters in this book. The other main character is her daughter, Zoe. So I always think about, when I'm writing one of these books, what relationships do I want to explore? And as I said, I've done friends, I've done strangers, I've done different, family relationships, sisters, which is a fun one. But I wanted to do mother-daughter relationship here. And so, yeah, it's about Felicity and her daughter, Zoe. Both have, the title is a bit of a spoiler, both have been betrayed in different ways over before the book starts, and they're both needing to recover. I had a working title for this book, which was actually The Art of Moving On, which for me is the theme of the book. It's how to move on, or how not to move on. And there's one other significant female character in this book, which I mentioned that I didn't read much in high school, but I did read one book, and that was Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Yeah. But for anyone who hasn't read that book, or maybe you've seen one of the movies or the TV adaptations, the character that really piqued my interest in that book was Miss Havisham. Now, she is a woman who was jilted on her wedding day and spent her whole life wearing her wedding dress. And I just thought that is just such a tragic, romantic image. I think my, as I said, hormonal drama queen teenage self loved that. But also, as well as spending her whole life in her wedding dress after being jilted, she is very, very bitter about men, and she seeks that or puts that bitterness onto her young ward, Estella. And I've read a number of contemporary retellings of Jane Austen novels. Love them, particularly Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. Let me know if you've read that book. It's superb. And I always love how our modern storytellers or novelists, take an old story and make it, fresh. And I'd always wanted to do that with the character of Miss Havisham. So that was one of the ideas for this book. That was one of the things that I've had in my head for a long time that I wanted to explore. I wanted to do a modern retelling with a twist, because I didn't completely steal it from Charles Dickens, with Miss Havisham. So we have Felicity, who is in Perth. It's 4 years. I should mention, we've got 2 books on the screen here. You can see The Art of Keeping Secrets as well. That's another part of the inspiration for this book. I wrote The Art of Keeping Secrets. I think it came out about 2015, 2016. Now, when I write a novel, to me, that's it. I'm done. I never plan on writing a sequel. There's an exception to that is my Bunyip Bay series, which is Outback Dreams, Outback Blaze, Outback Ghost. I wrote that as a 3-part series, and I always planned that. But every other book, I kind of just write it and don't think about writing another one. I probably should do a bit more planning. And so that's what happened when I wrote The Art of Keeping Secrets. Now, Tracy, I think it was, asked earlier, which is my favourite genre, and they're different. And that's why I like them both for different reasons. I like that in the romance novels, I always do have a hopeful, happy ending. And all my books will always have a hopeful, uplifting feel to them, even if there's dark parts in there, which there are. There's also light and fun, because that's important to me. I want to read a book to escape and to relax and enjoy myself. And so that's what I want in my books. But the thing with the contemporary general fiction, I don't have to have a happy ever after or a happy for now. And so there was 3 characters. Sorry. And I should show you that this is the latest cover for Art of Keeping Secrets, if you're looking for it out in the shops. There were 3 women in The Art of Keeping Secrets: Felicity Bell, who we mentioned earlier, is a taxidermist, and her 2 friends, Emma and Neve. Now, Emma and Neve had a pretty hopeful finished ending, but I kind of left Felicity Bell's ending up in the air. Not because I ever intended to go back to it. I just felt that was right for the book. But so many people asked me, they want a sequel, what's going to happen next? And I realised I never thought I could write a sequel because I didn't have a story for the other 2. I felt like they were done, definitely. But I started thinking over the next few years, maybe Felicity's story is not done. Maybe I could do more with her. But I still resisted because I didn't want to write a sequel, because I didn't want to do a story with the other 2. And then suddenly it struck me, you don't need to do a sequel in the traditional sense of the word, but you can still continue her story. And that's when I decided to bring her daughter Zoe in, and to give her some heartbreak, because she doesn't have it in the first book. And so then where did New Orleans come in? Did I mention New Orleans? If I haven't mentioned New Orleans, or New Orleans, depending on where you are and where you're from, I'm surprised. But that was a 3rd bit of inspiration for this book. So I had 3 things that I wanted to write about. I wanted to write Felicity Bell's story and give her a more hopeful ending. I wanted to do a modern day retelling of Miss Havisham's story. And I wanted to write a book set in New Orleans, which is a place that I fell in love with in 2014 when I went there for a writing conference. So writing a book to me is a lot like doing a jigsaw puzzle. The only difference is I rarely finish jigsaw puzzles. I usually finish writing my books. But so I had these little seeds in my head, or little snippets of ideas, and they're not a book on their own. And that's what I had. I had Miss Havisham, I had the continuation of Flick's story, and I had this desperate urge to set a book in New Orleans, probably because I wanted to go on a research trip there. That's, 90% true. 90% the case. And so gradually I suddenly was thinking one day, these 3 things go well together. Because if you have been to New Orleans, you'll know it's kind of a gothic place. It's one of the most haunted cities in America. There's the garden districts of beautiful old mansions. The French Quarter has, love, and there's a lot of tragic history because of the, horrible the treatment of slaves on the plantations, but also in the town. And so it's a dark place in a way. I've got a quote on my wall. Where is it? New Orleans is kind of dark in a very beautiful way. And that's exactly how I felt. So I suddenly thought, this goes well with the Miss Havisham character. And Flick, as Peter mentioned, is a taxidermist. And because in New Orleans they're quite, they hold death quite highly, and they treat it well, kind of thing. And of course, you've got all the ghosts there. Although I do think that's possibly because everyone's always drunk. So, you're seeing things. Anyway, so I thought that would go perfectly together. So that's kind of the 3 pieces of inspiration. And then I went on a research trip to New Orleans with my friend Anthea Hodgson, who's a fabulous rural romance author. And we, as I was there, I experienced so many things that came in the book. Before I wrote this book, before I went on a research trip, I'll admit that to me, setting isn't a huge thing in my stories. To me, it's the emotional journeys of the characters and all that. And so I didn't really think that, necessarily needed to go to a place. As I said, I wanted to go back because I loved it. So it was kind of an excuse. But I learned from writing this book that, you can't smell on Google. You can't taste on Google. And there's things that happened to us. We went into a bar. That became part of the book. A character, that person I met there inspired the character of Theo, who owns a jazz bar. If you want, you go onto my Facebook page, scroll back to Mother's Day weekend, and you can see the guy who inspired Theo playing some beautiful music in Fritzl's European Jazz Bar. So that was, I never thought of having the character like that until I went there. We experienced flash flood. That went in the book. We experienced something called a second line parade, which is where it's any celebrations, it's for funerals, weddings, and other things, where people will, with their whole, bridal party, say we'll use the wedding example because that's what I saw, they walk the streets of the French Quarter with a jazz band behind them, their bridal party, all their guests, and then anyone who wants to just grabs a drink from one of the streets, because you can drink in New Orleans streets, and just walks around dancing and singing along. It's just such a vibrant place. And so that went in there too. So there was lots of things that happened that I would never have put in the book because I wouldn't have known to research them. So, yeah, I'm going to answer some of your questions. Let's see. Where are we? Sorry, just going through. So Peter did say, did I actually visit a taxidermist? No, but I did a lot of reading about taxidermy. So I've got some beautiful books. I won't grab them because I'll probably not be able to find them quickly. But I ordered some lovely books about taxidermy, particularly some really gorgeous coffee table type books that have beautiful art, because I think when we say taxidermy, a lot of people just think of this, thing that's gathering dust and, still looks dead kind of thing in the corner of some weird old museum or whatever. But there's so many wonderful taxidermy artists that really make, animals that have passed away. They make beautiful artworks out of them. And so that's what I wanted. So I read a lot about that. I also got a book it's not Taxidermy for Dummies. Don't even know if they have one of them, but it's, it tells you the process. I watched YouTube videos about taxidermy. I mean, for anyone who's got a what's the word? Something stomach. Can't think of the word I'm looking for. Weak stomach. Don't stress, because there's not a lot of graphic description about taxidermy for 2 reasons. One, my editor didn't want it there because she thought it was too gruesome. And the other one, because I don't want to get stuff wrong. So I want to give you enough of careers that I don't know about. I want to give you enough to show that I've researched and I've done my best, but I don't want to go too deep into it. Plus, it's not a book about taxidermy. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, Jill, do you have another one in the pipeline? Always, Jill, always. I have a book coming out at the end of the year called Outback Secrets. That is the 5th in my series that was only going to be 3 books, because I'm, like that. I think it's the end. And so that is set in a country pub. And the heroine is an ag pilot home for Christmas. So I'm hoping you enjoy that one too. And I'm about to start my next general fiction book. And I'm still toying with a couple of ideas, so I won't say too much about that. What else have we got? Just looking through the comments. Faye, thank goodness I persevered. Well, you know what, Faye? One thing I tell people if they want to be a writer, well, there's a lot of things I tell them, but one of them is maybe don't do what I did, which is tell everyone in your life that you want to be a writer and that you're going to get books published, because then I swear, because it took me so long, everyone is thinking, oh my goodness, she must be terrible. So I felt like there was a stage there, I'll admit, just about a year before I finally got a contract, where I thought, I've wasted, 13 years doing this. Not wasted, but I have 3 little kids. I never see my husband because when he's watching TV at night, I'm in my office typing away or in bed typing away. And I thought, I could go another 15 years and not get anywhere. So I was planning on giving up. And it was my last ditch attempt that got me over the line. And I don't know if I could have given up, because I think writing is like a bug. once you get bitten, it's very hard to stop, even if it drives you crazy sometimes. But yeah, so I'm glad you're happy that I persevered. Oh, Lynn loved Talk of the Town. Thank you. That was a fun one to write. Stacey said nice quote about New Orleans. Yes. Sorry, I'm just going through the comments. There's so many. Okay, I'm just trying to not miss any out. Kylie Fent said, I have never read any of your books as yet. Which ones do you recommend to start with? Well, there's plenty of people on here who have read my book, so please feel free to, jump in and say what books you think would be good to start with. It really depends, Kylie, on your choice, your genre that you love reading. If you're a romance junkie, then I suggest you start with one of my rural romances. One of my favorites is Mandrout, although it's quite old now. So, I know that sometimes things get a bit dated in terms of what I mean is, like, these days, things that we calling out now, maybe in earlier romance novels, if that makes sense. So there's a few things in there, like how people speak, that maybe shouldn't have said those things, but still I love the story, and that's a real fun one to write. So Mandrout is my pick. If you like general fiction more, I would say start with a new one. You don't have to have read Art of Keeping Secrets. I should say that, because as I said, I wrote it completely as a standalone. So anything you need to know about Flick from the first book, you find out, not in an info dumpy, hopefully not boring way, but you find enough to know that you don't need to have read Art of Keeping Secrets. Of course, maybe you want to start with that. Anne said The Art of Keeping Secrets, Anne Lee, is her very favourite book of mine. Thank you. I'm so scared that I'm going to miss some of these comments. Oh, Cassie said, Cassie Roberts, I noticed you have several different plots. How do you pick them out? I'm not what we call a plotter. I wish I was. So I feel like there's two types. Well, there's two types of writers. There's plotters at one end who know everything that's going to happen in their book. They do big outlines beforehand. They, write detailed things in each scene. They know the ending. They know the enticing incident. They know the climax, all that kind of stuff. And then at the other end, you've got pantsers, who are people who kind of just sit right by the seat of their pants and sit at the computer and go, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do today, but I'm just going to sit down. Now, I don't think anyone is completely a plotter or pantser. You have to be somewhere on the spectrum. And so I have a vague idea of the things I want to write about, but sometimes storylines just kind of come along. And honestly, I call myself a prayer, not a plotter or a pantser, because sometimes I have no idea if I'm going to be able to finish a storyline. And I just hope that it works out. All right, we have been given a warning. I've talked for too long. Rosemary's having a surf blanc, same as me. So I'm just going to quickly try. I'm sorry if I've missed any comments. I'm going to try to go through them now. Caitlin said, I've been binging something to talk about, Talk of the Town and Fly in the Nest on audiobooks. Love both genres. Oh, thank you, Caitlin. And I love audiobooks too, especially, I don't clean much, but I feel like cleaning isn't a waste of time if I'm listening to an audiobook. Also love them when I'm running, driving on long journeys. Oh, Lydia's got an interesting question. Lydia Evans, are your female characters somewhat autobiographical? The short answer is no. I don't think, this is how I feel, or this is my story and I'm going to share it with you. I think probably my very first book, Jilted, it was about someone who left their high school sweetheart at the altar, and then comes back to town 10 years later. So, you may see where I've got inspiration from. But all of my books have a piece of me in it, not one specifically thought out, if that makes sense. But, of course, you're going to put yourself on the page. You're also going to put people you know. Graham Simpson, who wrote The Rosie Project and a number of other fabulous books, he said at a romance writers conference a few years ago that basically your characters are a third you, a third people you know, and a third your imagination. And I completely subscribe to that. All right, I am being told to wind things up, but I'm just going to see if there's a couple more comments. A lot of people are recommending Mandrout to Kylie. New Orleans is my favourite book settings. Me too, Tracy. If you've got any other ones, I love any book set in New Orleans. Okay. Eileen started with the Outback series, has been addicted ever since. I'm just going to not read all those comments because, it's just recommendations and you can see them. I'm just going to check if I haven't missed any wonderful questions. So if you have any questions to ask, speak now. or forever hold your peace. Okay. Kath said, Kath Grayson, as someone wanting to write a book of women's mental health, would a blog be better to start with? Kath, I am assuming you're meaning a memoir or a non-fiction book. I don't know anything really about writing non-fiction or memoir. A lot of non-fiction writers do have, I don't know your background, but, the majority of people that write, say a subject specifically like that, they have training and experience and qualifications or personal experience and something like that. And yes, a lot of them do have blogs that start, to building a platform and getting yourself known. And, sometimes the blogs can form the book. So I hope that answers that question. What else? Juliet Madison has asked a lovely question. Do you have a book you're most proud of writing? That is a really hard question. I go through phases with my books. So like when I'm just editing one, I hate it. I'm not proud of it at all and think, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing I've ever written. And what are people going to think? And then when I get some distance from a book and maybe I pick it up, just have a look for something that I'm going to reference back in a couple of years, I'm like, it's not as bad as I thought. But most proud of writing, it's probably the Patterson Girls, because that was the first book I wrote with multiple female characters in. It's 4 female characters in that book. It was the first book that wasn't a romance, even though there are romantic elements. And it also won the Australian Book Industry General Fiction Book of the Year award. And I remember when I was writing that, having no idea if I could pull it off. I didn't know whether I could write a book with, kind of one main storyline, but also 4 others going on. And so I'm proud that I did. All right, just a couple more questions, because I don't want the lovely Dex from Better Reading to be stuck on here all night with us. Okay, does the taxidermy place exist? Michelle said. No, I made that up. Bourbon Street is mostly restaurants, shops, not taxidermy ones, and bars, strip clubs, restaurants, all that kind of stuff. But we did go to the Museum of Death in New Orleans, which does have a bit of taxidermy and a whole load of really interesting gruesome facts and history of, gruesome things. Okay, I'm going to look at 2 more questions or comments, and then I'm going to say goodnight. I'm just checking that I haven't missed anything. Oh, Linda Bello asked, how many drafts do you normally write for each book? How long does the first draft take? I'm getting slower, actually. I used to take about 3 months only to write a first draft, but I realised that's when I weirdly had little kids and they were kind of more demanding, but now they're at school all day. I take slower, so I write slower, so I'm not sure how that works. But I think it's because there's so many other things going on now. I run an online book club. I do promo events like this. I'm active and talk to my readers and stuff. So, there's just a lot more going on. I think it probably takes me 5 to 6 months to write a first draft, but my first draft is pretty neat. Most books I don't do huge rewrites with. That when I say most, I have done a couple where I've had to do fairly heavy rewrites. But I pretty much submit to my publisher my first or second draft, I would say. And then with them, I'd go through another 2 or 3 drafts. All right, last question. I'm going to scroll right down to the end and see if there is something that anyone wants to ask. Okay. Beck, I don't know if we should finish on Beck's comment, though, because it's a bit of a downer. But it's something that all of us writers and aspiring writers can relate to. Beck Pullen asked, I've been in a massive writer's slump. Any tips to get out? There's a series of books called by Becca Syme, who's a fabulous creative coach in the US. They're called Dear Writer, You Need to Quit. Dear Writer, Are You in Burnout? I would start by reading her books. I'm reading a couple of them at the moment myself because I just feel between books I'm ready to refill the well. And that's also what I'd say. I think it's different for everyone. Some people need to step away and just take a break completely. Other people just need to keep writing crap and just write something. So, yeah, it's hard. I'd say try and take the pressure off yourself and ask yourself just try and take your pressure off yourself and find other avenues to fulfill your creativity, and then hopefully it will come back. All right, one last question, because I'm not ending on the writer's slump, even though all of us can relate, right? So the last question is from Lynn Jackson. Are your earlier books still available, and where do you order them? They're all still in print. I do have some digital-only novellas that are not in print, but all my rural romances and contemporary relationship stories are in print, and you can buy them all through Booktopia, or you can go to your local bookshop and they'll order it in for you. Some of them are available in like Big W, Kmart, Target, but not many of them. Anyway, thank you so much to all of you. You've been such fun to talk to tonight. I was going to say such fun to play with. And thank you to Better Reading for having me on to talk about how to mend a broken heart. I hope that whoever picks it up, that you will really love it. And yeah, see you next time.